So thank you very much for joining us today. It's almost lunchtime. I think you'll get lunch soon enough. You just have another half an hour, and then you can rush to the buffet. But we have a very good appetizer for you today. Foreign Minister from Japan, Taro Kono. It's a great pleasure to have you with us, sir. This is the first time that a Japanese minister, much less a foreign minister, has been at this forum. The Mediterranean is not a region one generally associates with Japan. The Middle East is obviously an important source of energy for you, but maybe we could start by just going over what your interests are in the region and what you're doing here today.
All right. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Taro Kono, Foreign Minister of Japan, and thank you very much for kind introduction. This is first time that a Japanese foreign minister participating in this Mediterranean dialogue, and I'm very honored to be here. It is actually very important part of the world for Asia. Mediterranean and Indo-Pacific is actually sitting next to each other. Half of the container shipment that come into Mediterranean region are actually loaded in Asia. Almost half of cargo shipment originating in the Mediterranean country ended up in Asia. And there are about 8,000 Japanese companies currently in the Mediterranean countries, and 200,000 Japanese people are living here. And they are on the rise because we have made a deal between Japan and the EU, EPA, which we are working on to ratify. So it will be this connection between the Mediterranean countries and Japan, and EU and Japan will be increasing. Actually, we import a lot of tuna fish, farm tuna fish. Well, the largest exporter is Mexico, but the second largest tuna exporter to Japan is Malta, and the third is Spain. So this region is indispensable for our sushi as well. It is true. And we share not only the opportunities, but our threat of spreading terrorism and violent extremism. In Asia, we are experiencing some foreign terrorist fighters coming back from Iraq, Syria, other regions to Southeast Asia, and we feel it. And this Japan-EU EPA actually covers 600 million people, 30% of global GDP, almost 40% of global trade fall under this Japan-EU region. So it is a big economic zone. And 8% of cargo shipment actually goes through Suez Canal every day. 4 million barrels of crude oil per day go through the Suez Canal. So there is choke point between Mediterranean and Indo-Pacific. So the stability in this region is vital for Asian economy in Indo-Pacific. So Japan has been participating in this anti-piracy operation in the Gulf of Aden and off the coast of Somalia since 2009, and we are trying to extend this operation for next year as well. And we announced four principles how we get involved in the Middle East. One, we will invest in people in the Middle East, and we will make intellectual and human contribution from Japan to Middle East. We will have long-term commitment or enduring effort in the region. And lastly, we will enhance the political commitment. 10 years ago, we started this so-called Jericho Agro-Industrial Park in West Bank in Palestine. There was nothing 10 years ago. It was just one road in the desert. But today, there are 13 Palestinian companies operating, creating jobs for the young Palestinians. And we are now building dedicated road from Jericho Agro-Industrial Park to the King Hussein Bridge and then to Jordan. And we wanted to export these Palestinian products out of Jordan to the Gulf countries and to the Mediterranean. I brought the sample. This is wet tissue for you to wipe the babies. This is a supplement extracted from olive leaves. And some soaps. And these are made in Palestine. And we welcome the Union of Mediterranean effort to try to promote the Palestinian goods. And we are trying to market these Palestinian-made products not only to the Gulf countries, but in the Mediterranean countries as well. So,
oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to using the soap. But if I may interject just briefly, aside from the efforts that you've described in Palestine, you know, a country you didn't mention here is China.
Mm-hmm.
How much of what you're doing in the region right now is driven by what China is doing? They obviously have a very aggressive strategy of investment in the Mediterranean region as part of their Belt and Road project. They bought the port of Piraeus in Greece, as you know. They're trying to build a corridor up through the Balkans towards Western Europe. How worried are you about what China is doing in this region? Because you referred to it as a strategic imperative for Japan to become more engaged. Is that really what you're looking at?
Well, if China grows peacefully, it will provide a lot of economic opportunity worldwide, and we will be welcoming. For the last 40 years, we provided a lot of foreign aid to China, and so many Japanese companies have invested in China, and now China grows to the world's second largest economy. So this year, I accompanied the Prime Minister to Beijing, and we agree that foreign aid is no longer necessary for China. So now China and Japan stand shoulder to shoulder, and we will tackle the global issues such as climate change or plastic debris or all those things. So as long as China grows peacefully, it's okay. And they have a Belt and Road initiative, and we are carefully looking at each project, and if the project meets international standards, such as transparency or openness or economy of the life cycle of the project, and lastly, the financial soundness of recipient country, if the project meets those criteria, we'll be happy to work with China. But some country in the middle of the so-called debt trap, and I don't think that will help those countries to grow. So we have to be very careful, and we will be cooperating with Chinese initiative by project.
Minister, you have a long tradition, and I come from Morocco, in terms of development partnerships. And your country has been quite active, for instance, in my country, in the area of the automobile industry, the cabling industry, with important foreign direct investment, as well as in the fish sector that you mentioned. In the meantime, Japan in its own region has played a very important role in uplifting and organizing value chains in your regions. In your view, what lessons you would draw from your own developmental experience over the past 40, 50 years for the Mediterranean regions, way beyond, I would say, basic infrastructure, and what's the, your advice for all our policymakers in the region for this to happen?
Well, there are a couple of lessons that we have learned. Well, number one, we believe in a theory that once a country grows economically, then the middle class people in the country would go for democracy. But for last so many decades, we see economies growing worldwide, but the number of the country pursuing the democratic way is not as many as we hope for. I still believe in a market economy and the real capitalism will lead to democracy. But if a country grows in state capitalism, the middle class created by the state capitalism wouldn't want a free election. They are making money with a connection with the government. And why would you want to bring in a free election that might topple the current existing government? So I think we have to be careful. We have to introduce a real capitalism, real market economy to the country so that in the next step, it will go up to democracy. That's number one. Number two, we have been helping other countries to grow. But last year, we see refugees and internally displaced people reaching 70 million, and it's growing. And it is almost impossible for us to increase the amount of foreign aid. We have a budget constraint. We got a huge government deficit. But our number of the refugees going up because of the climate change. I think the natural disaster will be more, and more people will be suffered. So we need to create some kind of new innovative finance to provide the humanitarian assistance. And that should come out of each country's budget. Japan is proposing something like international solidarity tax. Those who benefit from globalization should give back something. And we are proposing something like putting very thin tax on the currency exchange and give it to international organization for humanitarian assistance. I think we should still need to provide foreign aid for development purpose. But acute humanitarian assistance, we need to come up with something different, or we won't be able to manage the current situation, especially if we are to meet the SDGs by 2030. There's a huge funding gap, probably $2.5 trillion every year. And there's going to be no way for each government to come up with something out of their own budget. So we need something else.
You mentioned your free trade agreement with Europe, which was concluded almost a year ago now. You also have a political agreement, a strategic partnership with Europe. Some in Europe, including in Germany and France, see Japan as an important pillar of the multilateral system going forward alongside the EU, obviously, and Canada. And some see that a bit in opposition to the United States amid all of the concerns that President Trump is trying to dismantle the global order as it has existed. How do you in Japan, from your perch as foreign minister, see these developments? How worried are you that the global order is eroding, because Japan, as an exporting nation, has obviously been one of the main beneficiaries of that system?
Yes, probably Japan benefit most from the liberal international order that set up after the World War II. And I think it is our duty to keep the international order as it is, or we need to modernize some system. US has shouldered burden more than anyone else, and now they need some help. So I think Japan, Europe, Canada, Australia, and other like-minded countries need to shoulder the burden a little bit more to alleviate pain of the United States. And we are willing to do that. And we need to modernize the system, something like Security Council of the United Nations. It doesn't reflect the reality of the 21st century. So we need to change the Security Council, and we need to modernize WTO so that we can address the issue of e-commerce or digital economy or other issues. So we need to cooperate to upgrade international liberal order. But if there's any movement to destroy the international order, I think we need to unite and fight against it. And the United States shall be part of us.
Does that mean, though, that we're going to see a more proactive Japanese foreign policy? But that's sort of what I hear you saying. But what does that mean in terms of boots on the ground, as it were? If we take this region, if we take conflicts like the one in Yemen now or in Syria, can we expect Japan to become more engaged in those types of situations?
Well, we are not going to participate in sort of a military conflict. Our constitution prohibits Japan to take part in. But we will be willing to participate as a political player. Japan has been playing economic role in several regions, but I think we need to play a political role in the Middle East and other regions, and we are willing to do that.
One of the strengths of Japanese economy is technology and innovation and research and development. Most of the countries in the region are middle-income countries, which are facing the challenge of moving from, I would say, imitation to innovation. There's a potential for a very, an involvement of your country to make a big difference in helping that transition. How would you, is it something you're looking at? And how would you see this happening, particularly in the framework of the free trade agreement you have with Europe? Most of the countries of the Mediterranean have also free trade agreements with European Union.
Well, Japan is sort of carrying torch of free trade, and we believe in free trade, and we wanted to spread this idea. So we will be looking at other arrangement. And Japan is losing population very fast. I mean, Japan's shrinking 500,000 people every year. And Japan is probably one of the few countries that are not afraid of artificial intelligence or robotics stealing the job. We need the robots, we need artificial intelligence to fill the gap. So we wanted to accelerate innovation. And we are opening up labor market. We are debating new bill to provide opportunity for foreign workers coming to Japan. If this bill goes through, we will be opening a labor market next year, and we would like to welcome people from this region to be part of Japanese economy and getting skill and bring back to the home country.
One of the bigger threats in your region remains North Korea and all of the concerns surrounding its nuclear program. You've been involved behind the scenes in these discussions about how to get them to give it up. And I know that you're meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov this afternoon. What kind of progress, if any, have you seen on that front? How do things stand with the North Korean situation?
Well, unfortunately, the summit meeting in Singapore between the President Trump and the Chairman Kim Jong-un, nothing has really moving forward. I think North Korean leaders realize there could be a bright future for North Korea if they CVID nuclear weapons and the missiles. Then the sanction will be lifted, and Japan is ready to normalize the relationship with North Korea and provide economic assistance. So a lot depends on the North Korean leader to make the right decision. But until the North Korea takes concrete steps towards the CVID of nuclear weapon and the missiles, international community need to unite and fully implement Security Council resolution. I think that's what we need to do right now. And there are a lot of sanction evasions going on. There's a ships-to-ship transfer of petroleum product involving in the North Korean ships, and we are trying to prevent that. Also, they are trying to do some cyber things, and we need to prevent those activities. So we appreciate international cooperation and implementing Security Council resolution.
But do you think that the situation is actually getting worse? Because there have been reports that far from pulling back from its nuclear program, that it has continued to advance it in recent months.
Well, the situation is a little bit better because they're no longer shooting the missiles over Japan, and they're no longer testing nuclear weapons. So actually, President Trump made some progress, but they have not yet taken any steps towards a CVID. So we still need to keep the Security Council resolution on, and we still need to ask them to make the right decision. There could be a bright future, and they're missing opportunity.
But you mentioned the ship-to-ship transfers of the petroleum. Do you see any sign that China is putting pressure on North Korea in that regard, or is it helping it evade these sanctions?
Well, China obviously doesn't want nuclear North Korea sitting next to them. And China has been very rigidly keeping the Security Council resolution. So they are actually part of the international coalition. They have the largest trading volume before we put the sanction on North Korea. But I think China is with us, and they will be happy to see North Korea go denuclearized. So they are still with us.
But just a last question on that. Do you think that Trump, because from everything that you've said, it doesn't seem, as you said at the outset, that the situation has progressed at all. Do you think that President Trump was naive in going to meet Kim Jong-un?
Well, I think it was a very brave step. And now there's some mutual trust. I mean, Kim Jong-un or North Korea never criticized President Trump after the meeting. So they are still hoping that there could be something going on between North Korea and the United States. But I think the international community, led by the United States, need to ask North Korea to take action first. They have been engaged in six-party talks or agreed framework with the United States. And the mistake the international community made is we gave something for nothing. So this time, I think North Korea need to take concrete action, and then we will lift the sanction. So we shouldn't make any mistake like we did before.
Let me, Mr. Minister, take you back to the region. North Korea is important, but sounds a bit far away from the Mediterranean. We have our own problems, of course. I want to take you back to the innovative finance that you mentioned, and you came up with an idea which is Tobin tax to finance humanitarian assistance. At the same time, there is a need and potential for huge investments in the Mediterranean at large. And there are initiatives, as you know, by China, the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, the New Development Bank, etc. What would you come up with for the region and in terms of an innovative mechanism to channel important flows of investment, which remains an important impediment to development?
Well, Middle East and North Africa need infrastructure to increase the connectivity. And yes, we need to provide finance for those infrastructure projects. And Japan is looking for a partner to do this. And not only the government, but the private sector of Japan thinking about investing in the infrastructure project. So as I said, if the project meets international standard like transparency, openness, economy of the life cycle, and debt situation, if the project meets these standards, we will be considering.
But would you be ready to take the lead? Because these are projects, I would say, that are identified by the Belt and Road Initiative, let's say. But would you take the lead for some significant projects in terms of network infrastructure?
Well, we are taking lead in Indo-Pacific region. We are coming up with free and open Indo-Pacific vision that's connecting east coast of Africa all the way through the Indian Ocean, ASEAN countries, Pacific Island countries, the Pacific Ocean to the west coast of North and South Americas. And Indo-Pacific and the Mediterranean countries, as I said, is sitting next to each other, connected through Suez Canal, and it's very important, and it is a choke point. So we need to increase this connectivity in two regions to have actually more growth in both regions. So we will be looking at.
Sir, I think we're going to have to leave it there. I would have loved to ask if you're planning to do anything in Djibouti alongside the Chinese.
Well, the Self-Defense Force is using Djibouti for operation as a counter-piracy operation in Gulf of Aden and Somalia coast. And I think we will stay as long as it is necessary.
Sir, thank you very much for your time today. I hope you'll be back. And thank you all, and I wish you bon appetit.
Well, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please